But when you think of JP Morgan receiving a $920 million fine for suppressing the metals market, their head trader, Michael Nowak, who I had lunch with in New York City a few years back, he didn't even know I was at the table. There were about 20 guys there, and he's in prison. And yet that year, their metals desk, JP's metals desk, made $1 billion. They were fined $920 million. They got to keep the $80 million, and they're still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust. Something is wrong. But when you think he was then told to back down, it was a political decision. And now think about what I was saying about suppressing the price of silver to fund military-industrial complexes' acquisition and development of high-tech weaponry. So this is a lot bigger than it just being a commodity that is used for solar panels. And there's a lot that goes on that we don't know about, but I will tell you this. Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading, and JP Morgan is handed the biggest fine the Justice Department ever laid out, and yet they're still allowed to be this custodian of SLV. Talk about the fox guarding the henhouse.
You can trust JP.
Well, that's the point. And I just think people, when we talk about connecting the dots, it's I've been doing this for 4 years, publicly saying this is what I think. A lot of it's come true, which is very scary. And I'm out here saying this. It's too stupid to be stupid. Wake up. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm stupid for saying it, but I will tell you this, Carrie. Nothing I have ever heard would explain why you have 8 banks shorting a commodity like this. This is a shortage now going on 3 years. This is a structural shortage. It's not getting better in an asset that is it's depleting in nature. It's increasing in industrial applications and monetary applications, and yet you have all these banks shorting it with countries like India and China voraciously accumulating it. Seems as dumb as a mud wall to me. Silver is such a small market. Why? And I think that if it were 1 or 2 banks, fine, but 8 banks holding down the price the way that they are, it's just something is silly about all this. And like I said, when you see China flying around the world paying way more than the West will pay for unrefined silver and concentrate and sending it back and refining it there, that means all of that silver they're buying directly from the miners themselves isn't coming off of an exchange, and so the price isn't affected. And not to mention, how many people know they're the second largest producer of silver in the world behind Mexico and the largest producer of gold in the world. And they were always net exporters because of all the byproduct mining they do of other metals. They would have tons of extra silver at their smelters. That's now all being kept in-house, and they are a net importer. I think Zoltan Pozsar would be the guy that I would like to have on your show if I were you, and someday on mine. Because he's talking about Bretton Woods 3. He or she who has the commodities wins. And I think China and India and the BRICS nations are trying their best to show us that without showing it to us, if you will.
The silver market is one of the most manipulated, misunderstood, and undervalued markets in the world today. And what's worse is that most people don't even realize what's happening right under their noses. The institutions that are supposed to protect investors, like banks and regulatory bodies, are the very ones manipulating the system for their gain. Take JP Morgan, for example. They were fined a whopping $920 million for suppressing the metals market. But that same year, their metals desk made $1 billion. They essentially got a slap on the wrist, and what's worse, they got to keep the difference. How is that fair? How is that just? They're still the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, SLV, despite this massive fine. Something is seriously wrong with the way this system operates. Let's break it down. We have JP Morgan's head trader, Michael Nowak, who was convicted and went to prison for his role in manipulating the market. And yet the institution as a whole walks away with $1 billion profit. Compare that to Martha Stewart, who went to jail for insider trading, a much smaller offense in terms of financial impact. The disparity is staggering. Why is JP Morgan still allowed to be a custodian of one of the largest silver trusts in the world after being found guilty of such practices? Why are they still trusted with the very market they manipulated? This is not just a story of market manipulation for financial gain. The suppression of silver prices goes much deeper. It's tied to the military-industrial complex and the development of high-tech weaponry. Silver is critical for various technologies, including solar panels, electronics, and yes, military applications. Keeping the price of silver low helps maintain the affordability of these technologies. But this is about more than just technology. It's about control. The institutions that are suppressing silver prices are doing so to maintain control over a strategic resource, not just a commodity. The suppression of silver is not just about keeping prices low, it's about maintaining power. Silver has been a strategic resource for centuries, and today it's as important as ever. Countries like China and India have recognized this. They are voraciously accumulating silver while the Western markets are busy shorting it. In fact, China has been flying around Latin America, buying unrefined silver at prices much higher than what the West is willing to pay. They're shipping it back to China, refining it there, and keeping it off the global exchanges, which means it doesn't impact the official price of silver. This is significant because it highlights how disconnected the paper market for silver is from the physical market. While the price of silver on exchanges like COMEX and LBMA is being suppressed, countries like China and India are stockpiling physical silver at an alarming rate. This discrepancy between the paper price and the real-world value of silver is not sustainable. Eventually, the manipulation will fail, and when it does, the price of silver will skyrocket. Here's the big question. Why are 8 major banks shorting silver? If silver is in such high demand for industrial and monetary applications, why would these institutions be betting against it? It makes no sense. Unless, of course, you understand that they are trying to maintain control over the market. These banks are not shorting silver because they believe it's a bad investment. They're shorting it to suppress the price. They're doing everything they can to keep silver prices low, because they know that once the price of silver starts to rise, it will expose the fragility of the entire financial system. We've been in a structural shortage of silver for over 3 years now, and it's only getting worse. Demand for silver is increasing, especially in industrial applications, while supply is decreasing. Yet despite this fundamental imbalance, the price of silver remains low. This is not a natural market phenomenon. It's the result of deliberate manipulation by the banks and institutions that want to maintain control over this strategic resource.
There are 8 commercial banks right now that have the largest concentrated short position of any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market, period. And you have to ask yourself, why the hell would 8 banks be shorting silver when countries like India have imported over 700 million ounces last year, over the last 2 years, rather? Why would they do that when China right now, according to Sean Kun from Dolly Varden and according to others that I've talked with, who have publicly told me in videos recently that China is going all around Latin America buying up the doré bars and the silver concentrate, paying way more than the West will pay, and doing so to get it in unrefined fashion, send it back to China, and refine it there. So it's not pulled off of an exchange. It isn't factored into any pricing mechanism. It's, in essence, invisible. And this from the second largest producer of silver in the world, China, who has just become a net importer instead of a net exporter. So when you look at countries like China and India, who are voraciously accumulating silver, using this stupidity, this brain-dead weaponization of the commodity market where 8 banks are suppressing the price of silver to this degree, to the degree of the largest concentrated, the people around the world, like China and India, are using this suppression against us. They understand what we are doing. They understand that we are holding down the price, but they were never motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, wealthy enough, and to stand for delivery. But that's what they are doing. And this is the LBMA, the London Bullion Metals Association, who said it's the second lowest or nearly the lowest amount of silver they have ever had in their vault since they started keeping records. You're seeing the same thing on COMEX. Massive deliveries and rehypothecation on COMEX of over 1,500%, where 15 people think they own the same contract. If everyone stood for delivery, one may get the silver, the rest get cash settled. It was like Bernie Madoff, had a good deal going until people said, give me my money back. So this is what I wanted to show you and get your opinion, your feeling on it. So the question really to me is, if silver is more or less not even industrial, to me it's strategic. It's needed in so many things, including military, and they strip it from the supply-demand numbers. We have 8 banks shorting it to the degree that no one's ever seen in any commodity ever. And then we see this. We see the vaults being bled dry, and they're being bled dry by the countries who are now smart to our con and are using it against us, kind of like jujitsu, where you use your opponent's leverage against them. This is why silver hasn't gone. And this is what I think when we talk about little by little by little by little, then bang all at once. The all at once moment is when there is no silver left to be delivered on these Western exchanges. And then it moves to the Shanghai. So I'll just finish one more thing and I'll let you jump in here. Shanghai silver has been priced $4 an ounce higher for the past couple of months than LBMA. And then by COMEX, it's continuing to go higher. And in the past roughly 3 months, the combined volume of the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange has gone up over 200%. And that volume now surpasses the COMEX, effectively making it the second most highly traded exchange in the world behind the LBMA. It is gaining legitimacy. And when these exchanges are viewed for the scam that they are, this leveraged, rehypothecated game where no one ever stood for delivery, allowed us to fool the world into thinking our bond market and our currencies and all of these commodities we needed, one was of strength and the other is to suppress the price. All of this will be exposed, and you will see, I believe, a repricing of metals and repricing of commodities off of these exchanges to exchanges across the globe, where the people who run these exchanges are the ones who produce it, accumulate it, and understand it. And we have really squandered, I think, the privilege of being able to set these prices with a fair exchange, because the concept of a fair exchange, in my opinion, through rehypothecation, through the LBMA, able to trade almost 3 billion ounces of silver per day. That's 3.5 times annual global mine supply.
Right.
It's coming to an end. And that's why I think silver hasn't gone yet. And this is what I wanted to show you.
For years, I've been trying to connect these dots. It's not that I want to believe in conspiracies, but when you see things happening that make no sense unless viewed through the lens of manipulation, it becomes impossible to ignore. When you have 8 major banks shorting silver, a commodity with increasing industrial and monetary demand, it raises questions. Why would they do this? It's a market that has been in a structural shortage for over 3 years. The price of silver is not just being suppressed for economic reasons, but strategic ones as well. Countries like China and India are buying up silver in unprecedented amounts. In 2022 alone, India imported over 700 million ounces of silver. Why would these countries be so interested in accumulating a metal that, according to the mainstream narrative, is losing value? Because they know something that the average investor doesn't. Silver is not just a commodity, it's a strategic asset. And it's not just about how much silver they're buying, it's how they're buying it. China, for instance, is flying all over Latin America, buying unrefined silver at prices far higher than the West is willing to pay. They're bringing it home to refine, keeping it off global exchanges, which means it doesn't impact the official price. It's an invisible market. If you're wondering why silver prices haven't exploded yet, despite this massive demand, it's because of the manipulation happening on the exchanges. For example, the LBMA London Bullion Market Association admits to having around 800 million ounces of silver in their vaults, but 500 million of those ounces belong to ETFs, leaving only about 300 million free. Yet they trade 292 million ounces of silver every single day. How is that possible? It's not. They're trading paper contracts, not real silver. In reality, for every ounce of silver in those vaults, there are multiple claims on it. It's a system of rehypothecation, where multiple people think they own the same ounce of silver. If everyone who had a claim on silver stood for delivery, only a fraction of them would actually get the physical metal, while the rest would be forced to accept cash settlements. It's reminiscent of the Bernie Madoff scandal, where everything seemed fine until people started asking for their money back. And this isn't just happening on the LBMA, it's happening on COMEX as well. The rehypothecation on COMEX has reached absurd levels, with over 1,500% more contracts than physical silver. In simple terms, 15 people think they own the same ounce of silver. What we are witnessing is a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before the system can no longer suppress the price of silver, and when that happens, we'll see an explosive revaluation of the metal. The famous saying goes, little by little, then all at once. We've seen the price of silver suppressed for years, but when it breaks free from this manipulation, the price could skyrocket overnight. This isn't just speculation, it's an inevitability. China and India have already positioned themselves for this moment. They're using our own financial systems against us, standing for delivery on these exchanges and draining the vaults of physical metal. As I said earlier, this is like jujitsu, using your opponent's leverage against them. They are taking advantage of the artificial price suppression to build massive stockpiles of silver, and when the moment comes that the West can no longer deliver, the entire system will come crashing down. One of the most significant developments in recent years is the rise of the Shanghai Metals Exchange. For the past several months, silver on the Shanghai Exchange has been priced about $4 higher than on COMEX or LBMA. The trading volume on the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange has skyrocketed by over 200% in the last 3 months alone, surpassing the volume on COMEX. It is quickly becoming the second most traded metals exchange in the world, behind LBMA. What does this mean? It means that the center of the precious metals market is shifting east. When these Western exchanges, COMEX and LBMA, are exposed for the scams that they are, the pricing of silver and gold will move to exchanges that are actually tied to physical delivery. The Shanghai Exchange, for example, is built on real metal, not paper promises. When the West is no longer able to deliver silver, the East will step in and set the price, and you can bet it won't be anywhere near the artificially low levels we see today. We've had the privilege of setting global prices for commodities for a long time, but we've squandered it. The concept of a fair exchange has been eroded by practices like rehypothecation, where the same asset is sold multiple times. When an exchange like LBMA is able to trade 3 billion ounces of silver per day, 3.5 times the annual global mining supply, something is clearly wrong. We're heading towards a moment of reckoning. The silver market will not remain suppressed forever, and when it breaks free, it will be too late for those who haven't prepared. Investors who have been accumulating silver will finally see their patience rewarded. The price suppression can only last so long, and when it ends, the price of silver could skyrocket overnight. This is not just a financial game, it's a strategic one. Precious metals like silver are vital to industries, currencies, and even national security. China, India, and the BRICS nations understand this, and they are preparing for a world where silver is no longer artificially cheap. So ask yourself this: why are 8 of the most powerful banks in the world shorting silver? Why are countries like China and India voraciously accumulating it? The answers lie in the manipulation of our financial system, and the clock is ticking on how long that manipulation can last. To our viewers, this is not a time to sit back and watch. The silver market is being drained right in front of our eyes. And when the music stops, those who don't hold physical silver will be left standing without a chair. As they say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Stay informed about the latest developments shaping the precious metals market with regular updates from the Finance Daily team. Not only that, but as a subscriber, you'll also receive timely silver and gold price notifications and early access to groundbreaking news unavailable to the general public. Join our free gold and silver newsletter today, link in the description.